I'm Jonathan Crow, Director of Community at Ninja One, and this is another Ninja One live stream. We have with us a special guest, one of our very active Ninja One Discord members, Graham Daxon. Graham, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem.
And Graham is joining from Ontario, where we were just talking about snow. Robin is also in the background here lurking. She's in San Diego. She doesn't know about snow. I'm in Maine. I know a little bit, but not as much as you guys.
Yeah, it's today's supposed to be pretty heavy, so we'll see how it goes.
Yep. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Although it looks like your background, I gotta say, it looks nice and sunny.
I try.
But thank you, everybody.
Mind over matter, right?
Yeah. But thank you, everybody, for joining in. Feel free to, as always, jump in the chat. Let us know what your own experience is using Ninja in the scope of what we're going to be talking about today. Pepper Graham with questions. Take advantage of the time you got with him. And we really appreciate Graham coming on. He's going to be covering how to manage licenses, get a hold of all those licenses using Ninja. And so, Graham, before you dive into it, you want to give a little bit of background, kind of about yourself and how you've come to be here sharing this with us today?
Sure. I've been in IT for a long time. Let's see, over 20 years now I've been doing this. I started off in startups doing web hosting and running data centers. I did a short stint working in healthcare, did major corporate with some large organizations, and eventually made the transition to the MSP industry about 5 years ago, maybe a little bit more now. And really worked on taking our MSP from getting by to, maturing when it came to technologies, and trying to get into a position to succeed moving forward with, modernized tools and being able to assist our customers with modernizing their workforce as well. Oddly enough, that brought us around to, it was just Ninja RMM at the time, I believe. You guys hadn't rebranded yet. And licensing management was actually one of our largest issues that we were having with our previous platform. And it was a relatively simple fix in Ninja to not just be able to deploy software with ease, but to also be able to manage the license keys and the volume of scripts that are required in order to deploy them. So that was, that being one of our major drivers, I figured that would be a topic that, maybe we could cover today and set people up so that they can look at, maybe a little bit of better management themselves, or looking at involving other third-party tools to help automate this from, external processes and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's where I came from and what I'm hoping to accomplish today.
I love it. Thanks so much, Graham. Before we dive in, one more question. Just in regards to, coming into your MSP and driving forward modernization, right? Can you talk a little bit about your role and what your team looks like right now?
Sort of. So we internally are just in a bit of a transition period right now with some of what we're trying to accomplish. But yeah, my job within the MSP primarily is to review what tools we're using, how effective they are. When it comes, we're a heavily security focused MSP. We have a security partner that we leverage for our SOC services that we work very, very closely with. And I'm just brain farting all of a sudden.
That's all right.
Yeah. Sorry. But yeah, so what we do, or what I do, is I look to make sure that what we're doing makes sense for the time. So when we talk to our customers, we don't tell them specific tools or products that we use, because those products and tools might get swapped out at any point. When I came on board, we were using WebRoot for antivirus. We found it wasn't the most effective product on the market given what we were trying to accomplish. And then we quickly did a pivot to other MSP grade tools, and then eventually partnering with a SOC, going to more of that premium tier tool set level for next gen antivirus and EDR, MDR services. So yeah, my job is basically to make sure that we're kind of keeping up with the arms race with the malicious actors out there, and keeping our customers protected.
Thanks for that. And yeah, I mean, sorry to take us on a tangent. It's a whole nother topic I'd love to talk about, driving that change, doing your assessments, getting the stakeholders buy-in and all that stuff. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. Let's get into what you wanted to show. So yeah, I'm going to bring up your screen here and talk through what you wanted to show off here.
Okay, so this is almost a brand new instance of Ninja, but I've gone through and set up the basics of what we need today. So today we're going to be working with a software called the Elastic Agent, which is the Elastic security agent tool that gets deployed in order to provide the antivirus portion. Elastic has a few different components for its deployment in order to make it run. Generally speaking, there's two different policy sets. There's going to be a workstation policy and a server policy, so we need to differentiate those based on the license key. There's also a container URL that's used to connect to the cloud-based systems to get updates, definitions, get the telemetry data up to the SOC so they can analyze what's going on. Just all around to make it function. And that's where if you have 20 or 30 customers and you have 2 license keys and a URL to manage for each one, you don't want to start maintaining 60 or 70, 100 different scripts in order to get this accomplished, right? You want to have one script that fits them all. You run it on any endpoint. You can automate it through conditional logic inside the policies. But you want to be able to, just do the license keys once and have it there. So to get started from the documentation of the license keys perspective, in Ninja under apps, I'm not sure if this is available off the hop or if it needs to be enabled by an account manager, but there is the Ninja One documentation engine. Inside of here, I've already created a documentation page. Now, I'm just going to show this one and then I'll show how to create one after. So inside of mine, you can see here, I've created 3 fields that are based on text data fields. So I have the fleet URL, I have the workstation key, and I have the server key. This document template I've called app install. It's just where I keep my license keys and relative information for device deployments. So if you're doing something like the Tenable agent for vulnerability management, you need tag data, network data, the license key, the URLs, all that kind of information as well. So you would add extra fields in here to take care of that data. So we could say Tenable key next. So there are some interactions that we have to address in here. So when you set up your fields, automations. So this is where within Ninja, if Ninja can access these data fields. So in this case, we want it to be able to read the information from these fields from a script or from an automation process. The API functionality is really important if you have something like, let's say Roost, and you've automated your process for creating the instances of Tenable or the instances of Elastic or whatever tools you might use. DNS filter is another example of a tool that you could do this with. But you have to give your APIs the ability to read and write from these fields as well. So we'll go next. I don't really use descriptions for my stuff. It's pretty explanatory in the case of license keys. And we've now added an extra field for a Tenable license key on a documentation page. Documentation is not done through the app itself. It is now available to organizations. So here I have my sample corp, and under documentation and apps and services, I have my app install page. You can see here I've already gone in and pre-populated in my information for the license keys and how it and where it gets registered to. It's just simply done by clicking the edit button and either pasting in or typing out your information. Okay, so now we know that this information is inside of here. The question now is, how do we use this so that it's relevant to an application install. So in the scripting portion, so if we come under the library to automations, I have a script here in PowerShell to distribute the installer and pull the license information from those pages. So when this script executes on a Ninja agent, the context of the data that gets pulled is wherever that agent resides. So if that agent is part of the sample corp, it's going to use the documentation of sample corp. If this device belongs to other sample corp, then it's going to pull the license key information from that page as long as it exists. So we can see here, this is where we're declaring the variable. And then there's some built-in PowerShell functions with the Ninja agent in order to pull this information. So you can see here, I'm telling it to get the properties from the documents. The document is the app install, and the specific field that I'm looking for is the Elastic Workstation key. Same with the fleet URL property. It's going and doing the same thing from the same place and grabbing the other field. I'm going to provide these code samples as well as samples for Mac OS and Linux after this, and Jonathan is going to post it somewhere. So he will let you know where that is and where it's available. But I mean, the rest of the script here leverages those variables that we've put in to install the software. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Sample Corp, go to my device. Now with Elastic, it doesn't show up in the add remove program section. So we actually have to go in and look for the services. So Elastic shows up as Elastic Agent and Elastic Endpoint. And we can see here, it should be right here above embedded mode, and it does not exist. So we're just going to go and run the script of install Elastic, go. And in a second here, this shouldn't take too long, but we will see, where's my test from last night?
While you're looking for that, I just dropped in the chat. I will be posting the links to those code snippets to, I'll be posting them in the event recording section in our Discord server, which Robin has the QR code, over there in the top corner there that you can scan. We'll also drop a link to be able to join. And then I'll provide a link in the YouTube description too. So everybody will be able to get access to that. Thank you for sharing it, Graham.
Yeah. So sorry, I just froze there for a second while you were saying that, Jonathan. But so my task has completed here. You're going to see that it does have a warning. This is just because there is an existing directory of files to get extracted that has already existed because I've done this 5 or 6 times on my machine. But as long as I'm not having any other issues, we should start to see there's Elastic Agent and Elastic Endpoint. And in this particular case, I know that this was successful. The Elastic Agent will install, and it does not install Elastic Endpoint unless it's reached out and captured the configuration profile from the cloud to install the service. So yes, David, it's really this fast. It's not a lengthy process. It's actually very, very snappy. So usually even faster when it doesn't spit out 500 errors saying the file already exists. So yeah, I mean, this is it. That's how we manage license keys. Again, on ours in our production environment, we have quite a large amount on here. I think one of the other things that I just will show, because we have encountered this, apps, documentation. So in here, you can see that I've done text fields. Within Ninja, text fields have a character limit of somewhere around 128 characters. If you have a license key that's longer, because some applications do, what you want to use is a multi-line field. Multi-line field is basically the equivalent of the, I mean, this is probably showing my age, but prior to, there used to be string-based fields, which were always shorter, and then there was text fields. And the text fields used to be a much larger character limit of like 1,000 characters. The multi-line field here is accomplishing the same thing. If you have a key that doesn't fit or gets truncated inside the text-based field. Okay, so a question about custom fields and when to use documentation. So are you talking about like the global custom fields? Global custom fields usually apply at a device level. This is at an organizational level. So when you set it at the organizational level, you're saying this key belongs to this organization so that these devices get registered under this organization. So that's why we use documentation fields. Documentation fields are also useful for a variety of other things. I don't know if there's many SIP users in here, but I do believe SIP leverages documentation fields. If you have IT Glue and Roost, those guys leverage each other as well. There's lots of use cases for documentation in here. I mean, you can even put in fields that say primary contact and start documenting domain controllers and network infrastructure if you want to. I mean, you can use it for whatever you want, right? That's the beautiful thing about creating your own instance in there. One of the other cases we've used documentation for recently is actually technical alignment checklists. So going in quarterly and making a new instance of a checklist saying, hey, we verified that all these agents are deployed. We verified that the agent count lines up with the contract. We verified that the devices in Ninja all have all software deployed. We've reviewed policies, so on and so forth. And we have those checklists with items that you can actually assign those checklist items to technicians to accomplish, and they can go in and check them off, and that's all documented in the audit trail. So there's lots of uses of documentation. We're just kind of covering how to manage your license keys right now.
Yeah, and this is an interesting point by David too. Some people use custom fields for things they're used internally. Documentation fields for things that belong to the client would be handed off to a new MSP if there was a transfer. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yep. Again, it depends on what it is you're trying to accomplish. I mean, as in anything in life, context is everything, right? So, yeah. Again, I know this was kind of quick and straightforward from an example and a setup standpoint, but I mean that's really what it is. You can see that I only had the one copy of the script. Our old tool had custom fields. They didn't work. I couldn't get them to work. The vendor couldn't get them to work. They just didn't work. And we ended up with I think we had 1,400 scripts just to install software. And it was a little unwieldy, and I couldn't get out of there fast enough. Yeah, this definitely simplifies life. Again, I don't know if talking about other tools in here is acceptable or not, but we are working on automating our instant stand up for customers, where we stand up all the other tools, grab the license keys through API, and chuck them straight into a documentation field. So it's not even a manual process anymore. Maybe one day we'll cover that case.
Yeah, that would be super interesting. I'm always curious about how teams work to identify automation opportunities and then what it looks like to actually tackle some of those things.
Easier said than done in a lot of cases, but
of course. Well, just with this one, I'm kind of curious, and everyone who's watching, if you have any specific questions about this, about what Graham just shared, let us know. Now's the time. But while we're waiting on that, Graham, when you're rolling this out, did you kind of develop this yourself and then documented as here's a new standard operating procedure for the team? Like, what does that look like on your guys' side?
So yeah, I mean, it's primarily my team that looks after this, and you know, we're relatively small compared to the rest of the people in the organization, but the other senior techs are aware of all of this. But yeah, actually, it's kind of funny. I'm not sure if the documentation portion existed in its current state when we came on with Ninja One, and I remember the way the automation used to work was actually global custom fields. And what we had is we had check boxes, and it was like, you know, is Elastic installed? And in your script, if you had to have your script run and basically say, does this custom global field, is it checked yes? If it's checked yes, you know, run this little process, verify, and leave it checked. And then you basically had to use these checkboxes and interact with them in a script in order to track whether or not things were installed or not to automate it. Once this engine came out and the conditions and the policies came out, that all went away. Much more streamlined approach. But yeah, I mean, when we knew that this was something we could interact with through the PowerShell commands, it became a no-brainer for us. It was just, you know, stored in one place. One script calls it, it's in the context of the agent. Everything being in context of the agent just makes it simple.
I mean, I guess another point for, you know, you're staying on top of, do you need to make any changes with your tools to keep up with security, right? It's constantly evolving. But then again, it applies not just to replacing a tool, but also other updates or their new capabilities and everything. I mean, I know that's something that we try to address with Ninja all the time. Like, are we doing a good enough job letting people know about the new releases and everything that they could be taking advantage of now, and making sure that folks have all that in front of them? Work in progress, to be sure. But you doing this, everybody who's active in the Discord and sharing things, it does a huge amount to help with that. But definitely something we're constantly thinking about.
Yeah, it's I mean, everyone uses the same tool differently, right? It's, you know, some people use a hammer to put a nail in a board. Some people use a hammer to take a nail out of a board. Some people use a hammer to smash something for fun. You know, it's same thing, different use case. I would like to quickly address the from Jackson here. So the storage of files is an interesting concept. So let me see if I can just pull my screen up here, and I'll show you how we handle this. So where possible, and this is all vendor dependent. So Microsoft does this in some cases. I think another one of our vendors does this, but sometimes what you'll get from the vendor is they'll have a download link. And that download link will not be to a specific version. It's a static URL that always points to the newest release. Where possible, I like to leverage those, because then I don't have to worry about going back and updating my scripts to do another specific version number or anything like that. It just downloads the newest one on a new install and installs the newest version. And then hopefully whatever that software is, you have it set to auto update, right? Especially if it's antivirus, you want that stuff updating every day. So let's see here. So in the Elastic one, unfortunately, it's fairly static on its versions. For our specific use case, this makes sense because of the way that the SOC manages and updates its containers. So you can see here, we actually just download the files straight from the Elastic website. When it comes to other software packages or other, you know, one-off things that may be a little strange, I just use an S3 bucket. And I just have a special folder in it, you know, call it files, downloads, applications, whatever you want to call it. And then just on every file, I just make that single file publicly available so that no matter what agent is going to install it, they have access to it. I know there's lots of things that are scary about public access on S3 buckets, but if you're doing it on individual objects, like you've got nothing to worry about. You want that to be read-only anyways, because you want to be able to download it. And I mean, it's publicly available anyway, so who cares? But you know, it's yeah, I mean, S3 buckets, they're cheap and effective, easy to access. You can just copy the URL and do the exact same thing we're doing here. Again, if you can get it straight from the website and they have a URL that is, you know, static, that just gets you the newest version, that's the best. I know Jackson was talking about the install application section within within Ninja.
Right.
And the reason that we don't leverage that portion is that at the time when it came out, we were looking at it, but unfortunately, it didn't actually let us interact with the documentation fields to pull the licensing. So we couldn't use it. I don't know if that's changed or updated now. I mean, writing a script or copying a script and changing a couple parameters in it to deploy something else is just as easy for us as it is to, you know, try to figure out another way and then update all of our jobs. So
Yeah.
this is the path we've chosen. I mean, there's something to be said for control of a script for how you want to do things, or if things change. You know, I've seen softwares where, you know, you have to add an extra parameter to it all of a sudden, and just adding in like a dash dash tag or something like that is a relatively simple thing. You do it in one script, it does it for everyone.
Yeah, I'll bug our buddy Luke, the product manager who's in charge of documentation, and get back to you on that, on whether, you know, that's changed in it or not. We also had this question from David. Do you do anything to track actual licenses themselves and associate the keys from machines with them, like in other documentation, or is that entirely separate?
Yeah, that's a separate process for us. You know, we see all sorts of things. You know, you see people who have valid installations of software. License keys are kind of less of an issue with a lot of things these days, because most applications have some sort of online presence that you're signing into, and the licensing is bound to your sign-in. Things like Adobe, or I mean, most of the Microsoft suite in a lot of cases. You know, it really depends. So that's a separate process for us. I mean, you get the odd machine it comes across and it's got like Adobe Photoshop 7.0 that someone has obviously got from the Pirate Bay, and that you just have to, you know, have a little bit of a conversation with or something. But you know, license the actual key management, from validating that the keys are valid and storing them for each individual application, we don't see a ton of that for our use cases. Like I said, a lot of what we deal with is bound to a sign-in and an active subscription of sorts. So that's something, I guess, that's slowly becoming a non-issue, depending on the vendor.
And then I think we have Jackson's question maybe answered by David here.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying, Jackson, is that with the application installer functionality, I think you're talking about this down here under the parameters. This is, yeah, this is where we were not able at the time, and I again don't know if this has changed. We weren't able to go in and leverage the fields directly. Now, I do see that there are prescript and postscripts. There are a chance that you could maybe populate some of this information, but I'm not sure the interaction between the prescript and this actual execution here, where maybe you can say the parameter is, you know, token, if I can spell. And then over here, you have a prescript that's, you know, doing a string token or something like that. I don't know. I've never gone down that rabbit hole. It's possible, but for us, just because we've already committed to the other way, pivoting to this doesn't make a ton of sense for us, especially with the ability to very rapidly update the scripts. Even if we need a new software version, you know, changing a 16 to a 17 isn't that hard. So that's just the route we've chosen. I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong way. I'm just here to show you one way to do it, I guess. And it's worked really well for us. So
Appreciate it, Graham. And I'm seeing David's comments too about custom fields integrations from the app installers. I'm sure that we have some PMs who will watch this after the fact and they'll be like, "Oh my, I wish I could respond to this." But
Probably.
but we will respond to it. I'll leave some comments. And then, yes, I mean, I'll bring this up just because it leads to another point I wanted to make sure. Community members sharing scripts. I think everyone on here is probably already a member of the Discord server. If you're not, again, definitely check it out because there's tons of people like David, like Robert, like Graham here that are sharing all sorts of really helpful things, not just how they're working on things and different solutions. Like you mentioned, Graham, everyone has different ways that they figured out doing things. Everyone's taking different paths. And so sharing these is super valuable. We have our Ninja PMs who are constantly sharing things as well, answering questions. But just wanted to thank you again for taking time out of your day to do this. And thank everybody here. And Striker, I'm not going to address this one. We don't pass any judgment here. But no, thank you Graham for taking the time to do this. Thank you everybody for joining. And in that spirit of sharing with everybody, we're constantly looking for, if you have a way that you're doing something in Ninja that you think is super cool and you think could be helpful for people to see, let us know. Reach out to us. We would love to feature you on one of these things and help share it. So thanks for being a good inspiration there, Graham.
No problem. Anytime you need something, I'll come on and talk about it for hours. I don't care.
Careful what you promised there. All right. Well, cool. Well, I think we'll wrap it up. Unless, is there anything else you wanted to leave on, Graham? Anything else you wanted to share?
No, just that the commands for populating a variable or accessing those fields on the various operating systems, again, I'll pass those over to Jonathan after this. That way everyone at least has an example that they can work with, because I think it's Linux or Mac, one of the two of them, maybe both, require a double field calling for some reason. So it was a little confusing when I worked through it, but once I got it, I was, it copy and paste it every time you need it, right? So yeah, I'll pass those along and we'll have a good day.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, Graham. Thank you for sharing that. And thanks everybody for joining in. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. We have another stream. You can always check out the events thing. We're working, we'll be better about giving people a heads up and everything. But we've got things planned out for pretty far out now. So we'll release schedule updates so everybody can see the streams that are coming up. We've got a ton of webinars. We've got backups and bandwidth. We have all sorts of stuff happening. So check out the YouTube page to see events. Check out within Discord, our events section there. You'll see all the upcoming stuff. Thank you, everybody, again, and we'll see